Alright, you guys, we're going to do something special today. I feel like I haven't done anything with pasta yet, and I'm not going to do that. So, basically, the first thing to know about pasta is that we want our pasta to be what's called al dente. So I'll take a little noodle like that, and I'll try it, and I want to make sure that it's not too soft, right? I want it still to resist my bite, but I also want it to no longer have the taste of flour, which is going to be more important when you're using fresh pasta. I'm using the dried pasta that you normally get at the store. Now, for this one, I would normally be using like a cappellini or something along those lines, but for today, we're going to be using a spaghetti because that's what I had. So, let's talk about what else is going on here. Let's go ahead and use this so I don't dirty up another pan. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some butter, which I don't have out anymore. I'll use avocado. Avocado will work just fine. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil down here in the bottom of the pan. And I can put a little bit in this one as well, right? And I'm going to let this start to go up fairly hot. And I'm going to take my mushrooms over here. Now, it looks like we're already kind of getting there. Yeah, we're there. So I'm going to toss my mushrooms in here so I can get a good little caramelization going. And I can just pop those right back into the bowl when I'm done. Or I can just throw the noodles on top here and take it off the heat. So, that is part one. So I'm going to let those go ahead and sit there for a moment while I get the other part started here. So again, I put a little bit of oil in here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this on to kind of this medium to medium-high heat. And I'm going to drop in my garlic and onions, okay? So I can get some caramelization. But also what's going to happen here is that the oil that I put in there is going to take that, the flavors from the garlic and onions, and it's going to actually peel them away a little bit so I get more of that to penetrate into my sauce. So, I guess I'm going to start it off. It's okay, it's a little bit cold, but whatever. We'll go ahead and let that one go ahead and get started right there. Now, spoon here to get that going. And I'll go ahead and add my butter now as well. Checking this guy, make sure that we're not burning this at all. Now, my noodles are sitting over there. So generally speaking, like some people tell you to rinse your noodles, some tell you to don't. I don't really find there being much of a difference. The gluten on the noodles is going to kind of make them stick a little bit more together, but you can just break them apart when you put them in the pan. Now, right here, I've got cherry tomatoes, and they're the organic mixed colored variety. Each one's going to have a little bit of a different flavor. It's also going to have different nutrients in each one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dump them into this boiling water back here. Generally speaking, you should be able to dump it without it basically stopping the water from boiling. And now I'm going to grab a slotted spoon in the dishwasher. See how prepared I am for these things? Woohoo! That's it. Alright, so what I'm looking for when it comes to the tomatoes, because this is going to be very time sensitive, and actually this part's not in use, so I can go ahead and do here. Turn this guy off now, because those are looking good. Look at how good those are. Those look wonderful. So, I'm going to take my pasta, I'm going to toss it back into this pan. Alright, it's going to help with the burning and all that. And then I'm going to remove it from the heat. Alright, so just mix it around a little bit. Just make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom. And since I've got granite counters, I'm going to go ahead and set it over here. Alright. So, make sure that we're not burning over here. We're looking fine. So, coming back to the tomatoes really quick, what I'm looking for is I want to see when the skins start to split, okay? And basically, I've seen my first one splitting, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly remove all the tomatoes from this pan. Now, the tomatoes are going to actually retain a lot of that heat that was already in there. And so when you bite into them, they're going to have a little bit more of a tangy, sweet flavor than what they have normally, and it's going to kind of create this tomatoey explosion in your mouth that's really, really lovely. All right. I'm not using it. All right. So butter's melting over here, and really, I kind of don't want this to get too hot. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use, once I got these flavors kind of going out a little bit more, I'm going to add some heavy cream. I'm using a heavy whipping cream. This would not normally be, but my choice because it's got monodiglycerides in it. Usually I will go for like an organic variety that is really, really just cream and maybe a little bit of a stabilizer, but I don't necessarily want to have monodiglycerides added in there. Usually I think you'll still see the carnitine in, but the disodium phosphate, polysorbate 80 and sodium citrate you're not going to see in the higher end whipping cream, but with what Jet is asking for Christmas as far as pies goes, I'm probably going to use quite a bit of this, so here we go. That's why I want to kind of get a little bit more bulk. So once my butter is melted a little bit and I've got those flavors kind of leaching out, I'm going to go ahead and add about 8 ounces of cream. There we go. And I'm going to add my cheese, and it's really, really important that you're not too hot when you add your cheese. When you add a cheese to something that's really hot, it's going to start clumping and coagulating. So I'm using that cream to kind of bring down that temperature, and I'm using the radiant heat in this pan to bring the temperature back up. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and add some dry white wine. In this case, it's the Sauvignon Blanc. If this doesn't thicken properly, what I'll do is I'll just take some flour on the side, add it to some cream or water or whatnot, and I'm going to blend it down and then add it in. You don't want to ever add flour directly into a hot sauce or mixture, because what it's going to do is it's going to clump up. Like the outside of that flour is going to cook immediately, but the inside's going to be just clumps of flour, and you're never going to be able to break that apart. So putting it into like a small cup or something like that to kind of thicken it up will usually do the job for you. Now, as far as like salt goes in this is probably going to be about a half teaspoon, guys. You know, I'm actually really conservative when it comes to salt, so I'm not going to put a whole lot in there because, again, I don't feel like you actually need it, especially in a sauce. It can round out the flavor a little bit, but you know, honestly, if you put salt directly on the top of a dish, you're going to actually get a lot more of that salt flavor without, you know, spiking your blood pressure and all that. Now, normally I would start with fresh herbs and all that. This is just an Italian blend. I'm just going to toss a bit of that. It's probably about 2 tablespoons or so. And then black peppercorn. That's actually a peppercorn medley. But I'm just going to give it a little bit more flavor here. Now I do want to kind of start to bring that up a little bit more here now that the cheese is melted, but I do want to be careful that I don't get it too hot. You never want to get a cheese-based sauce, even one that's a little bit heavier on the cream like this one is. We do want it to be thinner, but you never want to get it way too hot because, again, it's going to cause that the cheese to start to create little clumps of cheese that are actually not cheese flavored really, and they're kind of gross, actually, in my opinion. So I don't really want to go that route if I can help it. But generally speaking, nice even texture here. Those little clumps that you're seeing in there, those are my garlic and my onions there. And that should be pretty nice there. Now, I don't want to go that way with it. I'm going to go ahead and just add this into my pasta now. I'm not too concerned. So generally, especially in a sauce like this, the white wine is not really going to burn off. But we're adults here, so that's okay. And we're going to accompany this pasta with the same Sauvignon Blanc that I put in there. And again, this was just a cheap one. You don't have to go, like, you're not going to be like sitting there sipping on it and like picking apart all the different flavors in that. It looks like I was still a bit hot. I do have some clumpage for my cheese. Now, as far as my cheese goes, preferably you want to be using kind of a parmesan reggiano. I don't think this was a parmesan reggiano, but basically what you should know about that is that you have a couple different grades of parmesan, and reggiano is in the style of the Reggiano region of Italy. So it's more of a regional thing, and it has higher regulations as to what can be called Parmesan Reggiano compared to just regular labeled Parmesan. Has very little regulations as to how it's supposed to come out. So you can actually have a significantly inferior product if it's not labeled as Reggiano. That being said, just because it doesn't say Reggiano doesn't necessarily mean that it's not as good. It's just you're taking a little bit more risk there. So kind of what I have to say about that is that it's just like with wine, you know, when you start getting into DOCs, DOCGs, and AOCs, DOC, DOCG is the Italian version of an AOC. And what they are is they are an organizational body that this defines what a wine is supposed to be like depending on the region that it comes from. And so, and the same thing's true in rum. We have regulations like if you get Jamaican rum, it's supposed to be made a certain way. A rum agricole is going to have very strict regulations on that as well. So when it comes to wine, especially when we're talking about Italian wines, which I know more about than I do about French, so you have a TOC, which would be a table wine. You can basically do whatever you want with a TOC wine. So it's going to be kind of more in the style of Tuscany, right? And then when you get into a DOC, you might have a smaller region that you would go into, and then once you go into a DOCG, it's in the style of this city, in the style of this town. And so the more letters you basically get, so TOC, then DOC, then DOCG, the more regulated that a wine becomes, and the more higher quality it's going to be simply because of those regulations. So that's what I have for you guys today. This is just very simple. I'm going to just, after I plate up, I'm going to go ahead and toss those cherries on top, or those tomatoes on top. We're having a Costco brand cordon bleu chicken, and then we're going to have some loose leaf salad, and that's going to be our dinner for tonight. So try it out, see if you guys like it. It could be advantageous, like potentially doing your onions and your garlic in a separate pan, and then bringing down your cheese and your cream and butter and whatnot in a separate pan on a lower heat, and then blending them together. That would work as well. Might get slightly better results than I got here today, but you know, looking at this at this point, it's the heat of the noodles and whatnot has actually kind of helped blend those cheeses down. So here's the thing about that, is that, you know, when I make a mac and cheese, which I might do for you guys at some point in time or something along those lines, I don't make it in a separate pan, and I don't use stove heat. I use the radiant heat, what's left over on the pasta, to actually cool that dough down. And so I find that works every single time, rather than trying to use stove heat. You're not going to get the clumpiness happening and all that. So we'll go ahead and go over that at another point. But for right now, this is kind of similar to like a cappellini capasante, except that we're doing a spaghetti capasante sort of deal. This would normally be served with like shrimp in it. We're having chicken instead, and like scallops and all that. We'll cover that on another day. But yeah, this is just a very, very basic spaghetti sauce, cappellini sauce, and we're gonna love it. So have a good night, guys. See you next time.